got chat down here and my monitor to my right. I'm going to move it over to my monitor to the left because that's a vertical and it's easier for me to see while we're presenting. Um, so I will be able to field questions from chat as we go along. So feel free to put them in there. This is, as I mentioned, going to be quite interactive. So I hope that this works well. And we are live recording. So I'm going to move over to here. Wonderful. Let's get started. Welcome to Boolean for Beginners. It's not really necessarily a beginner's course, but we are going to build the baseline for some really successful X-ray searches and a lot of the logic for how I do that. And we're going to be building it together. So I'm excited for today. Again, happy Halloween. This is my costume. It's really hard to see, but I'm a pirate. Unfortunately, my really cool pirate hat does not fit with my headphones. I wish it did because that would have made it a lot better. I didn't think about that when I promised I would be coming in costume, that my hat wasn't going to fit over my headphones and microphone. But I'm a pirate. My son was a pirate. We did a trunk or treat over the weekend, and I built a little pirate ship. We handed candy out of a treasure chest. I had Pirates of the Caribbean playing in the background. It was a lot of fun. I wish I looked as good as Johnny Depp, but I appreciate it. So let's get started. Many of you have interacted with me, have seen this. This is my beginner's guide to X-ray sourcing, beginner's guide for Boolean. And this is what today's webinar is going to be based off of. We're going to go through a couple of these different pieces. We're going to review the tips. We're going to actually build the search together and not just use the example that's down in the bottom left-hand portion of your screen. But this is going to be our roadmap today and how we build this and the approach that we take. If you don't have this already, I'm going to send this out to everyone who registered for the webinar. So you will have it. I did find a spelling error. So if you already have this, this is an updated version. If you can find the spelling or I guess it wasn't a spelling error, but if you can find the error and let me know, I'll give you a solid kudos. That's about all I can afford at this point with that. But this is the second iteration of that because I want to make sure it's as clean, as followable as possible. So we're going to start hands-on time. So I'm going to give you all a moment. If you don't already have them open up your text editor or Word document. And if you have multiple screens, this is going to be easier. If you don't, that's okay. I'm going to go to pace that I think everyone will be able to follow. But open up a blank Word document or a text editor. I like to use brackets. I know Martel uses brackets. He's in the chat. It's one that I talk about all the time. However you want to write that is not directly in Google, because we're going to just copy and paste into Google, do that. Second, open up a job description, job requisition, however you phrase it, wherever you work, that you are currently working on or will soon be working on, because this is how we're going to build the baseline of our search. And then in an additional window, open up Google. If you want to keep all of this in one browser, you can go docs.new, and you'll open up a new Google Doc if you're in Chrome. But you can open up a blank Google page and open up your job requisition and keep it all in one window if you don't want to switch between applications. But I'm going to give everyone a minute to open this up, open all of these so that we can get hands-on. And I'm really excited to do this. And so we'll pause for just a minute while we all do that. Probably should have started with this one. It's a good mental note for me. Eric, thank you for sharing that link for brackets. Super useful tool. If you have not seen me use it before, or if you just don't use it yourself, I would highly encourage looking at it. It shows you where your open parentheses are, your open quotations are. It's a really easy text editor to make sure that your Boolean is clean. It's also free. You don't have to pay anything. And I'm all about getting a bargain. Okay. I'm going to assume by now you've at least got a Word document or text editor open, as well as Google, and you're pulling up your job requisition. So we're going to get started. In your Word document text editor page, we're going to start with building your LinkedIn search. We're going to start with looking at profiles and looking at geographical restrictions. The first part is site colon linkedin.com/in. As you can see in the bullet point there, the /in is very important. That tells Google's that you only want to look at profiles. You don't want to see posts, jobs, pages, events, none of that. You're looking specifically for profiles. It works in the inverse if we start using other social media sites where I'm telling it I don't want things to appear in the URL. But for building a X-ray search in LinkedIn, this is where we're going to start as our baseline. Once you've got that typed, I want you to add, hit enter twice, start a new line. We're going to keep things separated so it's really easy to see piece by piece. The next piece is going to be location. And the way that I phrase this and what we covered in last month's webinar is I use location, whatever that city, state, or country is, around 10, using the number 10 for connections. And the reason for that is every page, every profile will have their location and connections occurring within 10 instances of each other. And so from city to connections, there will be no more than 10 words. So this is a really easy way to anchor the likely up-to-date and current geographical location of these profiles. If it is 2 words, make sure you're putting those words in quotations so that Google can understand what you're telling it to do. If it's just 1 word, you don't need the quotations. And if you're looking in more than one location, you can add that as a nested around statement. All you have to do is have the vertical pipe in between each location. And I'll show you what that looks like on the next slide. Is there anyone here that is sourcing for a role outside of the United States? Because I'll jump to the last slide and share a link for you so that you don't have to waste a space around the location. That's super helpful and is a great tool to use as well. Latoya, Canada. I'll share the link with you. The easiest way, I'm just going to jump down here to the end. I'm going to share this link. You use the country domain. So for you, it would be site:ca.linkedin.com/in. That would be your command to look at Canadian profiles. So this is going to be instrumental in getting around that location piece, because as it was on the first page, a Google X-ray is limited to 32 words. Because now you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. But there's that for you. So let's check. Once you have this typed into your text editor, it should look something like this. Thank you, Morgan Freeman. You should have on one line site linkedin.com/in. Unless you're Latoya, then it should be site:ca.linkedin.com/in. And then your next line should be your location. And this is how a nested location search looks. I've got Texas or Washington separated by that vertical pipe. Once you've got this little piece, go ahead and copy it, put it into your browser, make sure it works. All you have to do is go to your Google search bar and paste it. You don't have to do anything else. Is there a space between around and 10? There is not. So it is AROUND parenthesis 10 parenthesis and then the space. There is no space between the D and the parenthesis. Great question, Dan, because if you do have a space, it can break the way that it works. But go ahead and copy what you've got so far, post it in Google, make sure it's working, make sure you don't have any missing or additional spaces or missing parentheses. We're going to have a couple checks as we go along to make sure that we've got the footings for it. So the next one is, assuming that works, we're going to jump into titles. Titles is a really interesting piece with X-ray searching in LinkedIn, because we initially knee-jerk think I'm looking for job titles, but really what you're doing with this command is you're looking for web page titles. This only works with LinkedIn this way because LinkedIn formats every profile's web page as name, job title, company, and then sometimes they'll pull in things from your headline. But that's how your web page is formatted on a LinkedIn profile. So you can say in title is in the web page title. This is the things that I'm looking for. A couple things to keep in mind is um, using multiple words rather than a phrase for a title, right? If I'm looking in title and then software engineer in quotations, I'm now stuck in software engineer. If there's any variation there, it's not going to work. So instead, I could put in title software and engineer, and I'm now building inclusiveness and capturing what I was looking for, but allowing for a degree of variability that's manageable. The in title, however, does not nest well. This is something that I learned a couple months back. If anyone was on that webinar, I ran into some real issues trying to build a nested title string, and ultimately, what it boiled down to is that the in title function doesn't nest well. So if you have multiple variations, piece it out in multiple strings. The example I have here, midway down the page, is in title software or .NET and in title developer or engineer. And so what I'm doing is I'm building inclusiveness, I'm allowing for variability, and I'm not breaking my string by trying to nest too many things into it. So whatever your job requisition is, go ahead and start building your in title string, in title colon, and then put in your pieces to make sure that it's working. And this is what it should look like. Uh, line 5 there, you see the example from the previous slide, entitle software or .NET and entitle developer or engineer. So I want to check how you doing. Um, is everything working the way it's supposed to? Is there anyone that's running into issues early on? Anything that's not working? Or is everyone working so far so good? Okay, working good. Excellent. Wonderful. So the last piece for your baseline X-ray search is going to be your keywords. Think of this as the skills or tools or softwares that somebody uses in their day-to-day job that are required or preferred skills. The best way that I recommend doing this is building 2 columns. This is not in your worksheet. This is I write all this on paper. What are my must-have skills? What are my preferred to have skills? What are translatable there? I also have used a pre-search sheet that Batman built. He shared publicly. I'm happy to share it as well. But it's a great way that you can build uh, transferable skills between them. Um, it's really easy for us at times to get stuck in, well, things have to be the way that we do it here at my company, whatever that is. We need things this specific, uh, rather than having that conversation with our hiring managers and say, hey, we use this tool. Is there a degree of variability? Could they have used this tool that does the same thing? For example, I've been working on an enterprise cloud architect role where they are migrating on-premise infrastructure into the cloud, and all of our on-premise infrastructure is in the VMware ecosystem. That's where it's virtualized. Other softwares that do the same thing is Hyper-V. So having that conversation saying, hey, if they don't have VMware on their profile, but they have Hyper-V, is that translatable? Um, build inclusiveness for things that make sense. Things that don't make sense is trying to lump them all together and saying, "Hey, I need this and this and this and this and this," um, or trying to say, "Hey, I need this tool." For example, I need .NET, or I need Java, or I need Python, or I need Ruby on Rails. What you're telling me is you need a software developer who codes. So at that point, that string's not serving you any purpose. They are all different languages. So things to keep in mind uh, is lumping in and is lumping in like skills together. So here's one more check before we start getting into some of the more refining things. This is what your search should really start to look like at this point. And you'll see there's only one enter rather than 2 enters for line 7 and 8. Logically, the way my brain works is I group them by section, right? So I've got my site string, I've got my location string, I've got my title string, and then I've got my keyword strings, and I'll keep them all bunched together, but on separate lines. Um, but putting them together, you can now see that I've got my, must-haves or my nice-to-haves, and this is what we're looking at as a baseline for your X-ray search. As it should look like something like this. So I'll give you guys a minute. I know there's a lot of requirements for jobs. Type out your string, plug it in. Let's make sure it's working. At this point, does anyone have any additional questions while we're waiting to test all this? Eric, I agree. Need just a sec to write it out. It can be time consuming. Angela, yours did not work. At what point did it break? Was it okay, so we got product develop around, add a space after your 5 in your product develop piece. We're going to get to that. Bachelor around 10. Yeah, after your around close, your number, your 10 end parentheses, add a space, just to make sure that you're not creating a single term out of all of that. But that's the only thing that seems like it's not working. Also, the site, this is an important note that if you're using Word, you're going to run into this. Your commands have to be lowercase. So site, SITE colon has to be lowercase. If you're using uppercase letters, it doesn't work. So that might also be an issue there. Angela, go ahead and try that one too. Chris, no, the wildcard is not going to work in that function here. In my experience, at least, I haven't been able to get the asterisk to work in that sense. It really is kind of a in between words that the around function I feel like does better. Angela, it's still not working. I'm going to copy yours and see if I can get it to work over on my side. If I go site, we got a space here, simulation engineer, design engineer, electric engineer, got bachelor around 10, electrical engineer or physics. And then we've got product develop around, okay, this should work. Let's try this. New window. Not returning anything. Did not match any documents. We are going to drop the, oh, where's my brackets? We're going to drop the bachelor string because we're going to get to that in a minute and a different way to use that. Oklahoma around 10 connections. Does physics need quotes? But even dropping the bachelor piece, it still came back as an error. So we're going to play around with this for a second. Yes, Dan, this is brackets. That's what I'm using. Simulation engineer. Angela, I'm gonna try something a little different here. We're gonna go simulation or design or electrical. As one set of keywords. I'm assuming, are we looking at this as in titles? It could be product develop, actually. That's a good one. We are looking at these in titles. We'll go in title and in title engineer. And then I'm going to, that's a good call out. We're going to eliminate develop. We're just going to pull a piece of the title here. You're jumping ahead and I love it. We're going to get to all this. And here we go. We've got results. So let me copy and paste this back in. We will get to the experience piece, including degree, in just a moment. Oh, it's giving frowny faces for the colons and then the open parentheses. That's really funny. I promise I'm not sad about that string. We're gonna work with that, but that's really funny. That's something I've learned today. So we can all have a good laugh about some frowny faces in chat. All right. Hopefully, while we were running through that live troubleshooting, you've been able to test it yourself. Is anyone else running into any issues before we move on? Okay, Latoya, you're running into issues as well, or are you ready to move on? Issues. All right, Latoya, go ahead and paste your string in the chat. We're going to see what we can do with it. I want to make sure everybody's is working before we move on because the next part is going to be. And Dawn, yours also did not work. All right, this is great, guys. This is why we're here to practice. All right, Latoya. All right, we're going to start with Latoya's. Don, hang tight. I will get yours in there as well. We're going to make sure all of this is working. So we got site, Canada, LinkedIn.com. We got Calgary. We got a capital in title is probably all that is. And then delete your space there. The important part is each piece. There we go. If you're doing it in that sense, you have to have either each piece as in title or have it grouped together. So physician and urgent care could work. What I would try instead is closing it off and going in title. Whoops. Let's see if I can spell title urgent care. And we will double check that, make sure it's working. There we go. So that's all it was. There was a small piece there. The in title has to be lowercase. Drop the space between the colon and the open parenthesis. And then I would separate physician and urgent care into two statements just for the sake of having it not break or less likely to break. So Don, we'll jump into yours, and then after this, I think we should be good to go. All right. So let's see. We got linkedin.com/in, Barberton. And this is the other part with any of the commands are so silly with Google. If it's a command tied to a colon, it has to be all lowercase. If it's not a command tied to a colon, like and or not or around, it has to be in all uppercase. Did I send? Oh, Latoya, did I send that string back? If not, I'm sorry. Around connections. This is an example of why I really like brackets because it's showing me open parentheses. So we've got in title, manual machine. Are we looking for that as a phrase or are we looking as that as two instances of words? We've got in title, machinist, manual machine. All right, I will create it as a phrase. And if this isn't working, there's a couple different ideas that we can run with. Lathes or mills. Okay, this is a position I would be surprised to find on LinkedIn. I'm not gonna lie, but we'll see what we can do. Lathes and mills. Let's jump back over here. Did I miss something? Lathes or mills. I don't think that's an issue, but we'll lowercase it just in case. Barberton, around connections, in title. Are we looking at so manual machine and machinist? Are we looking at those as two, as an or, as in it's a manual machine or machinist? Okay, so we're going to change this one then. And drop it like this. And we're going to see what comes back. And thank you, Chris. I did catch that. All right, so we got some real few results, which is great. We're going to dive into what that looks like. This is a great segue. Angela, I'm happy to connect with you and talk about different options. I had a 4 after the or. Oh, I don't know what that is. My bad. Thanks for catching it. See if that changes our results. I did. Great job. Great catch, everybody. So we will drop that one in chat. Probably end up with the frowny face again. Yep. Great. So we're gonna pause there. If it's not working, let's connect afterwards. This is what your search string should look like. You can see some live edits. You know how to make these work. Couple things to keep in mind is your cite command, in title commands. Those have to be in all lowercase. Your and, or, not, and around have to be in all uppercase, and the spacing gets wonky. This is why people don't like X-ray, is because it leaves very little room for error. However, as you practice, you build a string, save the ones that you're building if they're working, and iterate on those, replicate them for different jobs. You're going to learn the functionality, and they can operate at a really high level. So we've got that. We've had some good practice. You're doing great, guys. Everyone's doing great. The hardest part is over. Now it's a lot of the fun stuff that is going to help us whittle some things down or allow us to expand our search further. So even with the last one, the machinist, we saw after I took out the 4 that should not have been tied to the or. We still only had 111 results, and Google likes to inflate things. They like to say that they have more than they do. Google must be a man, right? But realistically, Google did not even have 111 searches. Google had probably a couple dozen. So are your results too few or too many at that point? Is that enough for what you're looking at, or are you needing a larger pool to be reaching out to? If it's too few, here's an order of things to look at. The first, I would say, start with your keywords. Are there any transferable skills that you missed? Are there any other technologies or otherwise skills or tools that can do the same job? It's just a different approach that would quickly integrate with what you're doing. The second, I would look at your title. Are there any additions or omissions that would allow for more results? We saw that initially with the machinist. That was my error. I put in manual machine and machinist. I was not allowing for variability, but taking that down to manual machine or machinist, we then had an opportunity for variability that was healthy. So things like that. Is there anything I can add or remove in my title piece to create more results? And then location. This is a great one to take a look at. Is can you broaden cities or into neighboring states? Right. If you're looking at very specific cities, your talent pool is going to be limited. So the broader you can get that, really depends on your employer. If you're looking at relocation, things of that nature. But that's how you can assess the talent market appropriately. Something else to consider is that people oftentimes will list the specific city they're in rather than the metropolitan area, so that they can avoid unsolicited emails. I've said this before. I've done that. It's why I have my location on my LinkedIn profile is Swansea, South Carolina. I live 20 minutes away from Columbia. I very easily could say I'm part of the Columbia metropolitan area, but I don't, so that I don't get unsolicited emails for people looking in Columbia. So just a couple things to keep in mind. If the answer to all three of these questions is no, you're not able to move on from these. Keep following along. We're going to talk about some good principles. We'll continue building strings, and then I would love to connect with you afterwards. So we got a couple questions. Alexandria, there's no such thing as a silly question, but Google doesn't automatically show the number of results like it used to. Yeah, Google's really silly. It depends on what version you're in. Short answer. Second answer is with the most current versions of Google, they've changed it from pages to infinite scroll. And so if you want more results, you just have to keep scrolling down, and it'll keep feeding you what it is returning. And so that a lot of times will dilute the way that the results are reflected. Go into your Chrome settings and turn off infinite scroll. It's not actually going to get rid of infinite scroll right now. It's a known issue that they're working on. But that's what I did, and it started showing me reliable results again. So if that doesn't work for you, I'm out of luck. I'm not an IT guy. That was what was suggested to me, and it worked. Dan, to explain the around function and why I use 10, after I'm done going through these slides, I'll pull up another slide to show you the logic behind that and how that works. For now, let it suffice it to say that between the city and connections on a profile, there will always be 10 or fewer characters. Actually, I'll just show you. We'll jump into this right now. So if I jump into Paul's profile here, up at the very top, I can see, if I were to look Lake Mills, right? If I was looking for Lake Mills or Wisconsin, what I'm going to see is 1 word, 2 word, 3 word, because this is 3 or 4, depending on how Google decides to interpret it. But we've got this, and then connections. So this is why I use 10, because even on profiles, right? If I'm going to jump over to my own, I've got Swansea, right? And in between that, I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because these are buttons, 7, 8, and I've got connections. So even between Swansea and connections, there's no more than 10 words. So that's why I use the number 10 in my round statement for geographical restrictions. We're going to jump back over here. So too few. These are a couple of things to approach. If those aren't working, like I said, connect with me. We'll brainstorm. However, if you've got too many, this is a great sign. Let's continue. Being Aquaman, I thought this was really funny. Onward Human to Glory. We're building some phenomenal X-ray strings together. So, Dan, we're going to dive into the years of experience. So thank you for that softball toss segue. Here we go. Here's my logic tree. I love logic trees. I'm kind of weird. If you haven't picked up on that yet, but I love logic trees. So walk yourself through this, and this is how you're going to approach your years of experience string. Does your job require a degree? So, for example, Angela's required a bachelor's degree, and we're going to look at what that looks like. If the answer is yes, tie your years of experience to your degree date. If your job does not require a degree, tie your years of experience to an applicable job title. The next slide is going to show what that looks like, but think through this mentally. This is how you should approach this if you have to, or as you're building in years of experience. Does it require a degree? Yes or no? And then approach it from that perspective. So here's a couple notes on dates for years of experience, and this is what it's going to look like. Um, Years need to be separated by the vertical pipe. An or statement won't work. Angela did a great job when she shared her string earlier, separating the dates by the vertical pipe. Um, if you're tying it to a degree, all you're using is, I'm assuming bachelor. If your job requires a higher degree, that's fine. But tie bachelor around 5 is the number that I use. And then I list dates. If you're not using a degree, use an applicable job title, right? If I need someone who has 5 years of management, or 1 year of management to be in this role, and they need other years of experience, um, I would use lead or manager around 5, and then dates. The reason I do this, and you have the thing you have to keep in mind with dates is that these dates will reflect as start dates or end dates. And so you have to keep that in mind when you're carefully selecting what numbers to use. And it also will not just pick up a range, and you cannot use the range finder function for dates in and around statement. Doesn't work, but we will use the range finder later. So now we're building in years of experience. Uh, think on a LinkedIn profile or a resume, how that manifests. You're going to have, oh, I got my bachelor's degree from Southern Utah University, or on a LinkedIn page, it says bachelor's degree, Southern Utah University, and then it says, 2012 to 2015. And those are the years that I went to school. In 2012 to 2015, got my bachelor's degree. So because mine says 2015, this string here, bachelor around 5, 2015, is going to pick that up, with 2015 being the key date in that string. However, somebody who started, let's say they went to Auburn and they started Auburn, got their bachelor's degree in 2015, and they graduated in 2019. This same string, even though 2019 is not included, is going to pick that up because their start date for their bachelor's degree was 2015. Same concept applies for job titles and dates as well. Anyone who lists that they were a manager in 2021, that could be that they finished a job that was a manager title at that year or started. So you're allowing for variability, but you have to keep that in mind, and be tactful about it. So once you've got years of experience in there, feel free to throw in what you want. We're going to play around with it some more. Use your range finder. This is like the cherry on top. You still have too many responses. These are ways that you can find the low hanging fruit for those that are likely to respond to you. You've got the range finder, which is a really cool tool. And I use 350 .500. The reason I use the rangefinder in that fashion is anyone with over 500 connections on LinkedIn registers as 500 plus. So it doesn't matter if they have 501 or they've maxed out at, I think it's 30,000 connections. It reflects the same on their LinkedIn profile. So if I use the rangefinder of 350 to 500, I can see that they're at least active enough to have a couple hundred people, a few hundred people in their network. And it shows that LinkedIn, at least at some point, was an active part of what they were doing. They are more likely to respond to an in-mail than somebody who's got 15, 20, 100, even 200 connections. So this is a way that if you need to whittle your search results down even further, looking for those that have higher levels of connections. The other way that you can do this is publicly available emails. I threw email at the end there. Don't actually use the email piece there. As I was playing with it, I realized all the profiles were returning because if you click on contact info, there's an option for email, even if they don't have it. Publicly available emails, you can look at Gmail or at Hotmail or at Yahoo, and find those that have publicly shared their email address. So you can send them an email and you can send them an in-mail. 2 points of contact, the likelihood of you getting in contact with them is a lot higher. So this is to further whittle down your search results if you still have too many search results returning. This is also a great best practice to capture the low-hanging fruit using the email piece. However, the ultimate purpose is to give you a digestible slate of individuals to be looking at, and then to pivot from that point. So thank you, Tom. Where are you? How's everyone doing? Does anyone have any questions about how those work? I see another question there. Here to listen. Got one question out of curiosity. Is there a possibility to use not operator as well? Yes, there's absolutely ways to use the not operator. I use the not operator in my title strings pretty consistently. We can talk about that. But years of experience, as you guys were building out years of experience, was there anyone that was running into issues with that? Anything that wasn't working? Or the rangefinder, email finding, any of those returning no results, or at that point too few? So if we come back here, Angela, I think this one was yours, right? We've got the product around, so we're getting years of experience there. And we were seeing a search result return. And then Dawn, this one was yours. Dawn, how many years of experience does your job require? And does it require a degree? No degree, 3 years. Wonderful. So if it requires 3 years, we're assuming that they need something of this nature, manual machine work or a machinist. What I would recommend doing at that point, just to illustrate for everyone to see how this works in real life. I'm not just talking about a theory here. I would go machinist. Oh, I am misspelling things. Machinist. We're actually just going to copy this piece right here because I can nest it. I would go around. We're going to give a window of 5. And then if they need at least 3 years, man, 2020 was 3 years ago, huh? We're going to go with 20. We'll start with 2018. And we're going to capture some that are probably more experienced than what you might be looking for. Maybe that's not a bad thing. So I know this is only a year ago, but if they had this title and it ended, maybe they'd been there a while. Actually, we'll drop 2022. We'll stop it at 2021. If we copy this, come back over to Google, look at my pretty LinkedIn profile. This returned 0 results. I don't love that. Round 5, because if we eliminate this piece, whoops, I don't want to get rid of that. Eliminate that piece, we throw it back in, and it worked, right? We had things that were working. Most people with this skill are retired. Okay. And they also probably don't live on LinkedIn a ton. Don, have you tried social media sourcing, looking for people on like Facebook or Instagram that do this kind of work? Yeah, and Alexandria, perfect. I would check Indeed. That would be my go-to if you have that platform. If you don't, let's see. Dan, that's a great question. Why would my results increase when I change the title search with an and versus an or? It should decrease. Like I said, though, Google likes to inflate their numbers, so always take it with a grain of salt. And It's okay. If it is increasing your results, though, you could try adding additional keywords of preferred skills to bring it back down. Um, that would be weird, though, if it's increasing results using an and versus an or, because and is not inclusive, while or is. Um, so again, here's the guide to build a baseline X-ray search. If you're going to run into hiccups. X-ray is not easy, but it is effective. Um, so keep that in mind. Practice it. If you are running into issues, send me a message. I'm always happy to take a look at strings, make some suggestions, uh, to collaborate on that. Um, but let's see, Dan, we got another 615,000. Yeah, that's a pretty dramatic change. Dan, would you mind sharing your Boolean string that you built? I'd like to take a look. But yes, Martell can vouch for me. I'm more than willing to hop on a call. Several people actually on this webinar right now I've hopped on calls with. Um, yeah, I love the frowny faces. That is so funny. I hope that never changes. Okay, audit or auditor, entitle, CPA. So what particular piece did you change, Dan? Did you change it to entitle, audit, auditor, or and entitle CPA? I changed the or to an and between the entitle to lower the results. Yeah, that would make sense because this statement that you've got right here would be the same if I were to just go CPA. That would be the same. And so changing it to and definitely is going to be restrictive there because then CPA, could be rather than their job title being a CPA, just noting that they are a CPA. They're an auditor, comma CPA. I see it in property management all the time. They'll list their CAM and all their different listings, or HR, right? PHR, SHRM, whatever that looks like. So yeah, it would lower if you put and that makes perfect sense. And then making sure that that is lowercase. Philadelphia, around 10 connections, in title. Wonderful. Yeah, logically, Dan, that makes a lot of sense. Adding CPA, adding CPA as an and versus an or is going to drop your results. Wonderful. Any questions? Any other questions? Yeah, a CFE. There you go. I have not worked on a finance role of that nature in probably a little over a year. They were fun to work on, though. I appreciated how straightforward the accounting world is. They don't have as many conflated job titles that other industries looking at you software development have. So, if we don't have any other questions, I have to go. My fish need me. I'm Aquaman. I love my monthly webinars. This is going to continue for a long time. I really enjoyed hands-on work like this. I also enjoy the live sourcing where we talk about the principles. Then I hop on, work on a real role. I would love to hear your feedback as to which model you enjoyed more. And if there's if there's a different approach that you would like to see altogether, I would also like to hear that. Anyone who is registered for the webinar will be getting a thank you email. It should be automated and it should have the recording. I've run into issues with this before, so if it does not send the recording with the thank you email, let me know, please, so that I can make sure that everybody gets the recording. I will also be sending out the beginner's guide that I have built. Yeah, that's the second iteration of it. I corrected one grammatical error. but I'm sending that out as a thank you as well for anyone that registered for today. For those of you that watch the recording and catch this on rewatch, please send me a feedback message. Let me know the things that you appreciated. If there was any issues that you were running into, I'd be happy to talk with you, walk it through, see if we can't find a resolution. Um, but yeah, thank you everybody for coming today. I'm super excited. For those of you that saw, I have a speaking engagement with SourceCon in April. We're going to be doing hands-on training then, so we're probably going to see some more of the hands-on build with me in this format. I'm still using live webinar, but I'm contemplating moving to a different platform so that we can have screens on, multiple screen sharing, and collaborate that way. So keep that in mind. That might be coming in the future. But other than that, I hope everyone has a great Halloween. I hope you all enjoy getting to spend time with family and friends. And hopefully you all get some candy. If you have kids, make sure you take your parent tax because we all deserve a little bit of candy for trick-or-treating with them as well. And like I said, I'm always happy to connect. Send me a message on LinkedIn, send me an email. Email's less responsive than LinkedIn, but I will get to it. And thank you everybody for coming.